Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. What if one moment of jealousy, one single slap, could destroy a friendship, break a relationship, and ignite a love triangle that no one in Los Angeles is ready for? Inside a beach house that was supposed to be a safe place, emotions explode between Dylan Will Spencer Jr. and Electra Forrester. What started as an act of kindness slowly turns into suspicion, jealousy, and finally, a shocking confrontation that ends with a slap heard across the patio and four cold words from Electra that could change everything. Alright, let's talk about a moment that completely flipped the emotional landscape for everyone involved. If you have been following the intense drama surrounding Dylan, Will Spencer Jr., and Electra Forrester, then you already know that things have been simmering beneath the surface for weeks. At first, the situation seemed simple, even compassionate, but as is often the case in Los Angeles, especially in the world surrounding the Foresters and the Spencers, nothing stays simple for long. It all began when a painful truth about Dylan came out. Will and Electra discovered something heartbreaking about their friend, something Dylan had been desperately trying to hide. She had been living out of her car for months. Imagine the emotional weight of that. Every night she was fighting to survive, trying to maintain some sense of dignity while quietly carrying the burden of homelessness. She never asked for help, never wanted pity, never, but eventually the truth surfaced. When we'll find out, he couldn't just ignore it, that wasn't who he was. His instinct was to help immediately, without hesitation. He offered Dylan a room at the beach house he shared with Electra. It was a spontaneous act of generosity, the kind that feels morally right in the moment. Electra agreed at first. To her, it seemed like the compassionate thing to do. Dylan was a friend. After all, how could they possibly turn their backs on someone who had been struggling so badly? Dylan was deeply grateful. When they told her she could stay, she hugged both of them and promised over and over that she wouldn't cause any problems. Reassured them she would stay out of the way and never become a burden. But from the very beginning, something about the situation felt off. Electra couldn't quite explain it at first. It wasn't anything obvious. It was subtle, little moments that planted seeds of doubt in her mind. Sometimes when Dylan looked at Will, her gaze seemed to linger a little longer than normal. Her compliments toward him sounded slightly too warm, slightly too personal. At first, Electra tried to brush it off. After all, jealousy can play tricks on your mind, but each time Will laughed at something Dylan said, Electra felt a small twist in her stomach that she couldn't ignore. Still, she kept telling herself the same thing. Dylan was her friend. She trusted her. There was no reason to believe anything inappropriate was happening. But as the days passed, the atmosphere in the beach house started to shift. Will and Dylan began spending more time together. Sometimes they would cook dinner side by side in the kitchen. Other nights they would end up talking for hours, long after Electra had gone to bed. They laughed easily together, shared stories, and developed a natural rhythm that made it look like they had known each other forever. Electra kept reminding herself that none of it meant anything. Friends talk, friends love, friends spend time together. But there was one afternoon that changed everything. Will and Dylan were watching Haze together while Electra was busy elsewhere. The two of them were joking around, laughing, and the connection between them seemed effortless. It wasn't forced or awkward, it was comfortable. And then something happened that made the moment longer. During ballet practice, Dylan slipped and ended up falling directly onto Will while they were sitting on the couch. For a second, they both laughed about it, but instead of immediately pulling away, the moment stretched out longer than it should have. Long enough for someone else to notice. Ivy. She saw the entire interaction, and once Ivy noticed the tension between them, her curiosity kicked in immediately. She began asking questions, harmless questions at first, but questions that slowly fed the doubts already growing in Electra's mind. What started as mild suspicion quickly evolved into something stronger: jealousy. Electra tried to stay calm. She really did. But jealousy has a way of creeping into your thoughts and twisting every small moment into something bigger. Suddenly, every interaction between Will and Dylan felt suspicious. If Dylan laughed at one of Will's jokes, Electra noticed it. If Will defended Dylan during a disagreement, Electra noticed that too. Even the way Dylan walked around the beach house began to bother her, like she had become too comfortable in a place that wasn't really hers. Slowly but surely, Electra began to feel like an outsider inside her own relationship. Eventually, she decided she couldn't keep ignoring the feeling anymore. Once, one day, she confronted Dylan privately. The conversation started politely enough. Electra tried to stay calm and rational, reminding Dylan that Will was her boyfriend and that kindness shouldn't be mistaken for romantic attention. Dylan insisted Electra was imagining things. According to her, Will was just a friend, nothing more. But Electra didn't fully believe her, because sometimes actions speak louder than words. Then came the night when everything exploded. Late one evening, Electra returned to the beach house earlier than expected. As soon as she walked inside, something felt strange. The house was quiet, too quiet. As she moved down the hallway, she heard voices coming from the patio outside. Will and Dylan, they were laughing, standing close together, closer than Electra was comfortable with. She stopped in the hallway and watched for a moment without revealing herself. And then Dylan said something that shattered Electra's heart. Dylan confessed to Will that she didn't regret the feelings she had been trying to suppress. Those words hit Electra like a physical blow. She stepped outside. Both of them turned in shock when they saw her standing there. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. Electra looked back and forth between them, silently begging for an explanation, but neither of them spoke. That silence was all it took. Electra slowly walked toward Dylan, her voice trembling as she walked, asked one simple question: "Is that true?" Dylan hesitated. The hesitation was the final confirmation Electra needed. Before anyone could react, smack! Electra's hand struck Dylan's face. The sharp sound echoed across the patio. Will immediately jumped between them, shouting for Electra to stop. But Electra wasn't just angry at Will. She was furious at Dylan. This was someone she had helped, someone she had trusted, someone she had welcomed into her home when she had nowhere else to go. And now it felt like that trust had been completely betrayed. Dylan stood there stunned, slowly touching her cheek, but the most chilling moment came next. Electra looked straight at Dylan and said four cold, devastating words: "Stay away from him." The meaning was unmistakable. This wasn't just jealousy, it was a warning. At that moment, Will found himself trapped in the middle of an impossible situation. On one side was Electra, the woman he loved. On the other was Dylan, the friend he had tried to help when she needed it most. He tried to calm everyone down, insisting that nothing had happened between him and Dylan. But Electra didn't believe him, because emotional betrayal can feel just as painful as physical cheating. Electra asked Will one final question: "Do you still want her there?" The silence that followed said everything. Eventually, Dylan spoke up, her voice filled with emotion. She admitted that yes, she had started developing feelings for Will, but she insisted she never planned for it to happen. Living together, spending time together, and seeing his kindness every day had changed everything for her. She said she tried to push those feelings away, but she couldn't. Electra couldn't bear hearing it anymore. She stormed out of the beach house, leaving Will chasing after her, while Dylan stood alone inside, realizing that everything had fallen apart. This moment could trigger massive consequences for everyone involved. Electra's trust has been shattered, and once trust breaks like that, it's incredibly hard to repair. Dylan may feel guilty, but her admission makes the situation even more complicated. and Will is stuck in the middle of a storm he may not be able to control. The ripple effect of this confrontation could spread through everyone connected to them, especially with people like RJ, Ivy, and the entire Forrester circle watching closely. Honestly, this is the kind of emotional explosion that happens when small tensions are ignored for too long. Electra tried to ignore her jealousy instead of addressing it early. Dylan tried to bury feelings that were clearly growing stronger, and Will underestimated how complicated the situation would become. When emotions build up like that, they eventually explode, and that's exactly what happened here. So now the big question is, what happens next? Will Electra walk away from Will completely? Will Dylan leave Los Angeles to escape the fallout? Or could Will shock everyone by choosing one of them and ending the triangle once and for all? I want to hear what you think. Do you believe Dylan crossed the line? Or is Electra overreacting? And if you were Will, would you who would you choose? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the drama, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more breakdowns of the biggest shocking moments.